we have a system that has some issues. Those issues are getting worse over time. How do you fix them? But in particular, what sorts of solutions or reforms can you put into place in a context where power is already being held by people who got in thanks to that system, and there's a 65% chance that they could retain that, all it's being equal?
I want to be very clear. I am not here to give you hope.
Oh, great.
This is not a hopeful book.
Okay, well, if this is the theme of the show, honestly, we rarely do.
This is a description of how a system is working. The first step to fixing anything, if we're going to fix it, is that we have to understand the actual way it works, why it is functioning the way it does, why polarization is breaking it. So first and foremost, I do not want people to read this book for solutions, because I don't believe the solutions I put out in this book are going to happen. What I believe is that the analysis of how the system is structured and why it is working the way it is correct. The problem with getting any of my big picture structural solutions done, like proportional vote and instant runoff voting and campaign finance reform and get rid of the electoral college and get rid of the filibuster, and I got my whole fantasy. I got my whole fantasy football of how I would reconstruct American politics. If there was a capability to pass things like that, then the problem I'm actually trying to solve probably wouldn't be a problem at all, which is that polarization makes the system ungovernable. You need very high levels of compromise and even consensus across the parties to get big things done in American politics, given the structure of the system. That makes it very hard to do the kinds of things I'm talking about. I think we might see the system change over the next 10, 15, 20 years because of demographic change, or it could change in a darker way because of disenfranchisement. So you could see different things happening here that will change the underlying analysis. I think we should democratize the system. I think we should bomb-proof it against things like the debt ceiling. I think there's an argument for doing things like balancing the party's power in certain places. You can imagine that, say, in the Supreme Court by moving to term limits or something else. But the problem is you can't pass anything because of polarization. So at the very least, I will say one thing I am trying to do is I would like it to be all parties, but Democrats in particular, to recognize that if they don't take system reform seriously, if they don't take making it possible to pass policy, making it possible for small d democratic majorities to express themselves and govern, the whole rest of their agenda, whether it's Medicare for all or it's the moderates or whatever, is not going to work. So they need to take democracy itself as the top priority.
It's interesting, because that was sort of going to be my next question. I believe that by watching the behavior of Donald Trump, but also Mitch McConnell, I think they sort of get fundamentally what has changed, what's happening, all of that. Do you believe that the Democratic leadership understands the situation that they're in? Do they get this turn away from democracy in a lot of different ways that the Republican Party has taken? For me, we might disagree on some things politically. It feels like they are still trying to, in this election, play ball by the rules of 15, 20 years ago. Do you believe that they fundamentally understand how things are changing?
I think it depends who you're looking at. I think some understand it much better than others. I think, say, Joe Biden is very much trying to play ball by the rules of 15 to 20 years ago. He came of age in a depolarized Senate. When he talks about these compromises he made with segregation of senators, he's very much talking about that mid-century, Dixiecrats and sort of conservatives in the Democratic Party Senate. That is his emotional baseline of how American
politics
work.
There were liberal Republicans at that time?
There were liberal Republicans you could work with. It was pretty different. Now, he's not as far to that side. I mean, he was there during the Obama administration. He knows it doesn't quite work that way. But he fundamentally has a politics of restorationist epiphany, right? He's going to get elected. Republicans, as he said, will have some kind of epiphany, and they'll work with him in a way that they haven't been until now. On the other side, I think you'll see Bernie Sanders similarly has a politics of epiphany, but it comes out of political revolution. It comes out of the country will see that a democratic socialist agenda is what they want. But the problem there, where I do believe actually a lot of those ideas are very popular, is that popular majorities are not able to express themselves into power. You can get 60% of the country on the side of something, say gun control, and not get anywhere with it. So I think you still need a lot of this systemic reform. There are very few Democrats, liberal, not liberal, moderate, whatever it is, very few Democrats I talk to in the Senate or anywhere, who recognize that they have to do political reform first and are willing to do that. A couple, Elizabeth Warren has been pretty out front on this. She's pushed pretty hard. She sees it more around corruption, but she has, in a way the others have not. She's come out for getting rid of the filibuster, getting rid of the electoral college, which some of the others have. But it's really not about whether or not you say those words. It is about whether you prioritize it. You're going to have to get into power and make this your first thing, spend your political capital here, and be willing to hear the media attacking you, be willing to hear people say, oh, democracy itself would be a power grab, which I think is deeply untrue. But a very good just rule of thumb, which candidate is going to come in and do what we should have done a long time ago because it is the right thing to do and make DC and Puerto Rico states? You can do that just straightforwardly. But you have to decide to do it first, or you're not going to have the political capital to do it ever.
Yeah, and look, HR 1 was all focused around not so much structural, but ethics, corruption, and also some voting reform.
And that was, I thought, an important thing.
Yes, and so hopefully the field is ready to be seated.
But to pass that in the Senate, they would have to get rid of the filibuster.
Yeah, that's
so that's the thing. The first thing you have to do in the Senate, it's why I focus on the Senate, is even just passing through majority vote through that, you have to get rid of the filibuster. If you don't get rid of the filibuster in the Senate, there is no progressive agenda that will pass. It is not possible.
Okay. I would love to have a full conversation about that and some of the implications of that, but I do want to let people know where they can see where your book tour is going soon. So I believe we have a graphic we can bring up showing some of the upcoming cities. You're in February, it's February right now. You're in LA right now, but you're also gonna be traveling to San Francisco, and you can see there. Feel free to pause this on YouTube, and you can see a number of different locations you're gonna be traveling around. Fascinating book, and I hope that Democratic leadership takes some of the lessons seriously.
Thank you very much.
We're in a special time, a dark time. But thank you, Ezra. Great to have you here. Thanks for watching The Damage Report. What if you could protect yourself on the internet for the price of a cup of coffee a month? Well, if you head to nordvpn.com/TYT, you'll be able to connect up to 6 devices to NordVPN's military-grade encryption for $349 a month. If you go now, they'll even throw in a month for free. Go now.